Hey everyone, welcome to this new episode of Explicitly Pro-Life. I'm Kristan Hawkins, and thanks for coming and joining us this week and spending time. And I'm really excited because I have my friend Christina Bennett who is here with me for this special podcast. Christina has a great story. She was actually scheduled to be aborted, so I've asked her to kind of come on today to talk about your personal story, why you fight, so fiercely for the preborn and their mothers, but then also you're in Connecticut. And so
Yes.
I see your Facebook, your Instagram posts, you're working for the Family Policy Council. Family Institute there in Connecticut. But the pregnancy centers in Connecticut are coming under attack. And I feel like we really need to talk about this, of how the pregnancy centers are coming under attack, what's being said, how can we fight back? Because the pregnancy centers and the pregnancy medical centers, there are the front lines of the pro-life movement. And they're the ones who are out there in the community reaching her and truly being that alternative place to go to from Planned Parenthood. And so we as a pro-life movement need to know about this and step up here. So tell me your story, Christina, and why are you here and how did you get here?
Sure. Well, thank you for having me, Kristan, and thank you for everyone that's watching and listening. So I am from Connecticut, as you shared, and I did not grow up in a pro-life family. I'd never heard abortion talked about in my family. I'd never heard abortion talked about in any church that I went to growing up, and so I really...
We've talked about that before on the podcast.
Yes, so I just didn't, it wasn't an issue for me. It wasn't something I really put much thought into until I was in college, and someone had approached me. I was going to church and someone had approached me and said, I feel like God wants you to know that something remarkable had happened around the time of your birth. And I thought, okay. So I asked my mother what that was, and she was really hesitant to tell me. She said, I don't want to talk about it. But then I, kind of pushed her after a couple months and said, Mom, please, what happened? And then she told me, you'd hate me, but okay, I'll tell you. I scheduled to abort you. And she told me that she went to Mount Sinai Hospital in Hartford, Connecticut, and she paid for an abortion, was in the robe, and a janitor, an African-American woman, saw her crying in the hallway, not making a scene, but just gently crying, and approached her and said, do you want to have your baby? My mother said yes, and she said, God will give you the strength. Now, she was planning to walk out. And she went to get her stuff, but the doctor called her name into his office. And when she walked into his office, she saw blood on the floor. He hadn't even cleaned up the blood from the last abortion. It was just disgusting. So she said, I've changed my mind. I want to leave. And he said, no. He said, you've already paid for this. And she said, no, I want to keep my baby. And he said, you're just nervous. And then again, she said, no, I want to keep my baby. And then he took the mask off. He kind of tried with the practical approach. You've paid for this. Then the false compassion. You're going to be okay. When she said no again, he just yelled at her and said, don't leave this room. And she ran out. And she got married to my dad, but it only lasted a year because they had some issues in their relationship. And then they got divorced, and she raised, me and my brother as a single mom, and she just hid it in her heart. I don't think she would have ever told me, ever, unless God had, brought me to a place where I could ask her.
How did you handle that when you found that out?
I cried. When my mother told me, I remember she told me, and then she left the house, and I went and I sat on her bed and I cried. And I'd given my heart to Jesus as a Christian when I was maybe 12, so at this point I'm in college. So I believed in that moment that God had rescued me. I thought, wow, God, you really saved me before I was born. But just knowing that and even that gratitude, it didn't mean that I knew what to do with it, because I had no idea. What do I do with the story like that? It's I'm grateful, thank you. Okay, I'm alive. I'm happy to be alive. Now what? So for a little while, I actually didn't do anything. I just kept on going to school, and there weren't any pro-life groups at my school. I'd never met a pro-life person, so I wouldn't have even known who to talk to or who to go to. I started having dreams. And in my dreams, I would be, I was in an abortion clinic in one dream, and I was pleading with this woman, and I said, please don't have this abortion. Your child could be the next president of the United States. And then I woke up, and I was like, okay. And then I had another dream that I was in a college dorm, and I was like trying to counsel a woman, like a student, please, like, don't have this abortion. So I started paying attention to my dreams, and then some time passed, and I visited a church near my college, and there was a man named Lou Engle who spoke. I had never heard of him before, and he spoke, and he mentioned that God had put on his heart to fight for abortion, the ending of abortion. So I thought, oh, this is the first person I've ever heard talk about abortion, so I'll go and tell him my story.
He's a friend.
I'll go tell him what maybe it'll encourage him. That's what little did I know, I was so naive. I didn't know that God was just gonna take over my entire life.
Thank you for giving me the reins, Christina. I'll take it from here.
Yeah, okay, for the rest of your life now you're gonna be a pro-life abolitionist. I didn't see that coming. I didn't know anyone who did that kind of work, for their life. So I just told Lou, I said, hi, I just wanted to tell you my story. God saved me. I hope it encourages you. And he has this deep voice, and he's like, would you like to come to Texas, the call, and share this story? So I was like, sure. So, I ended up going. I never shared my story, but I felt at that moment when I went to Texas to this big, massive event, thousands and thousands of people praying and fasting, for abortion and other issues, I felt, okay, I have to follow this guy, in what he feels called to do. And what he felt called to do was, at the time, move to Washington, D.C. This is about 2005. I graduated college in 2004. Moved to Washington, D.C. with a company of people, put red life tape over their mouth, and pray in front of the Supreme Court for the ending of abortion.
Bound for life. You've seen their pictures, yeah.
Yep, and I still wear, to this day, somewhere in here, my life band, which is a covenant that I've made that I'll never vote for someone that's not pro-life. That's part of the covenant. And that I will pray and fight for the ending of abortion and do acts of justice. So in 2005, I moved. It was very interesting, because I was saying goodbye to my family and friends, and they were like, why are you going to DC?
How did you explain this to them?
It was challenging, but I had a dream. It sounds like I've had a lot of dreams, but I guess I did, especially in the early days. But I actually had a dream that President Bush, Jr., President Bush, I was across from him at a kitchen table, and he said, Christina, now that you've finished school, I have a job for you in Washington. Now, what made this dream significant is that at the time when I had this dream, I was failing my math class. I was finishing up college, but I had this one math class that I had failed. And I failed, the midterms, the finals, everything.
Epic.
It was failing. Yeah. And in the dream, President Bush said, now that you've finished school, I have a job for you in Washington. And in the dream, I said, do you happen to know Lou Engle? And then I went on, he's praying for you. And I woke up. Well, I thought, I wonder what that job for me in Washington is. And then I got an email from my professor. And he said, Christina, and the rest of the students, you all did horrible. All of you did horrible, so I'm curving all of your grades. And my F went to, a D or a C. And so I was done with school.
Done.
And I thought, I'm going to Washington. So when I heard that Lou was drawing people to Washington to pray, I felt like this is what God wants me to do. So I told my family, and I remember I got a little plastic fishbowl. I went to my pastor's house. I invited people over for a party. I put the little plastic fishbowl out. I said, can you put money in it? People put money in the fishbowl. I got myself a bus ticket to D.C., and then I moved. I moved to D.C. I was 20-something years old. It was 2005. I lived in community with 60 people. We lived in Bowie, Maryland at Bishop Harry Jackson's farm. Yeah. And we would bus into Washington, D.C., and we just prayed and fasted. We prayed for the Supreme Court. We asked God to give us righteous pro-life judges. We prayed at the House of Prayer that was near the Supreme Court. I did that for 3 years, traveled around with Lou and the company of people, and then I moved to Atlanta. I did that same kind of stuff with International House of Prayer Atlanta, which is a prayer ministry, and Bound for Life Atlanta.
IHOP, but not to be confused with the restaurant.
Yes,
IHOP.
not the pancake place, but the prayer place.
Yes, we have a lot of Catholic subscribers. So
I love
Lou
my
Engle,
Catholic friends.
Google him. It's very big in the evangelical community. So just a little context when you say Lou Engle,
so some people may not know, but he's an evangelical minister who really didn't have any
huge events.
Yeah, huge events, but he had no no plan like to just become this pro-life voice, but God just kind of arrested him with the William Wilberforce story and spoke to him on a plane one day and said, like, William Wilberforce fought for the ending of the slave trade. For the rest of your life, I want you to fight for the abolishment of abortion. And so he taught us some things that I still hold very true to this day. One of those things being that you only have so much passion. And because you only have so much passion, it's okay to have a very narrow focus. And so Lou taught us that we didn't have to fight a million different issues, that we could be focused on the ending of abortion, and that would be okay. And that's what God called us to do. And so, and voting pro-life, and praying for the Supreme Court, and believing that God would give us righteous judges. So it's funny that now, here I am, I'm 38, and I went there in my early 20s. I'm still on that same track, you know. I'm still fighting for those same things. I'm still believing for those same things. But the cool thing is I've seen those things happen.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think the prayers might have worked.
Yes, and they're still praying
for righteous judges, for pro-life judges. I mean, as much as pro-lifers or Americans might not like Donald Trump at moments or his tweets or whatever, who would have thought you were actually praying for Donald Trump to come in?
At
a point in a time. I mean, one of the untold stories of what people don't know, and if you're not really paying attention to DC, is there's been this total reshaping of the judiciary. Like over 150 judges, pro-life, conservative judges have been appointed and confirmed to lower courts that are going to literally for decades shape American policy. Because every time we try a pro-life law is passed, and we've lobbied for pro-life laws in different states. Who's the person that always stops the laws from being enforced? Who stops the will of the people? It's always one judge that's in Planned Parenthood's pocket.
It's
true.
So
it's funny because it's like, who would have thought the person you were praying for, and you had no idea,
it's true,
was somebody who was this pro-choice billionaire. That's who we're.
I mean, only God knows.
Only
and
God.
That's why
I was just saying that just points.
That's
to
why
the
you have to trust God. And I actually, another dream story is that I had a dream that President Trump was going to win. When I was praying about what direction to go in, and how would I vote, of course, my voting isn't just based on dreams; it's based on biblical principles. A lot of us were very conflicted in 2016. But nobody really knew for sure back in the day. And I saw him win in the dream. And when I saw him win, I actually felt relief from the top of my head to the tip of my toe, and it kind of rushed over me, and I felt like God's peace. And so that was one of the things, along with the fact that he was saying, I'm going to do these things as a pro-life person. And so for me, you've got one person who's saying they're going to do it, and at the time, okay, maybe we weren't sure, but the other people who were like, I'm letting you know, I am, pro-abortion all the way.
Planned Parenthood will be moving into the West Wing,
So for me, it was very simple in the sense that I'd prayed for so many years in front of the Supreme Court. And the judges that go into the Supreme Court, that go beyond, 4 or 8 years of a presidency. That the person who's appointed is going to be on that court for the rest of their life. And so I felt the sobriety of that, and I know that different people and there's always opinions about the things that we do, but one thing I've learned is that I can't live for other people's opinions. I have to do what God's called me to do. I have to vote and the way that I feel God's called me to, based on my convictions, based on my principles. So I am very proud of the president's pro-life work and what he's done so far, and I am excited that he's going to be at the March for Life as the first president ever to be at the March for Life, and that's wonderful. I live in a state where we have a very pro-abortion governor. We have pro-abortion mayors. We have pro-abortion state senators, and they are always celebrating abortion, and they are, fighting against the pregnancy centers and
the two.
It's the difference. I had the pleasure of going to the White House in February, and everyone treated me and Melissa Ohden and others that were there so nicely. And to think that, I used to pray, as you mentioned before, and then God opened up a door to be in the Oval Office. It was a really beautiful thing, and I could feel the difference between the way I was treated there and the way I'm treated at home, which, it's not who cares ultimately, if you're standing for something, some people are going to treat you really poorly, and other people are going to treat you kindly. But regardless, it's just nice that we have that.
It's a nice little treat reprieve.
It is. It's nice. I'm grateful.
So you just kind of segued beautifully into the next part.
Oh, thank you.
I follow you on Facebook and Instagram, and
yes.
I don't see
Black pro-life woman.
Yeah, I don't.
That's my Instagram.
Oh yeah. I don't see you a lot, but I feel like I kind of know what's going on because Christina is a people person and shares a lot. It's a forced thing for me to share on social media. So, but I always know what's going on in your life, which is great. But I feel like I see you a lot more than I really do.
Yes.
But Connecticut's crazy. And you, for a time, were involved with a crisis pregnancy center, the Pregnancy Resource Center. Now you're at the Family Institute with Peter, which is they're a family policy council. So there's family policy councils spread throughout all the country. They're kind of focus on the family.
Yeah, we're like a focus on the family affiliate.
Yeah, and some states are stronger than others, but there's some really good ones. So Peter's been running that, and so you've come over.
Yeah.
But I want you to talk about kind of the stuff that's happening in Connecticut with the pregnancy centers, because
it's insane.
Every pro-lifer needs to know what's happening in Connecticut, because they've attempted this in some other states, but I think this is kind of a good wake-up call for the rest of us.
Sure, absolutely. So I worked for 4 years for the ABC Women's Center, which is a pregnancy center in Connecticut, and I really enjoyed it. It's in Middletown.
Okay.
And I worked as the client service manager, and it was awesome seeing women choose life, seeing women choose adoption. And at some point, we saw an increase in attacks from NARAL, which is a pro-abortion group, and Lady Parts Justice, which is a ridiculous pro-abortion
comedy
group. Mm-hmm. And we saw an increase in attacks because they launched a campaign called Expose Fake Clinics. Expose Fake Clinics. And they're calling pregnancy centers the fake clinics. So they started doing, bad Google reviews and lying and, sending in fake clients and fake phone calls and trying to spy. And they did this because they wanted to create a report. And after a certain amount of time, they created a report called Connecticut Pregnancy Centers, A Right to Lie. So they thought that was cute, like it's supposed to be a play on the right to life. So they created that report. And it's funny that they call it a right to lie, because the entire document is their lies, saying things like pregnancy centers are targeting women of color. Yeah.
With all the dollars they make.
Exactly, right? What a joke. Pregnancy
So just like how homeless shelters must target homeless people.
Yeah. Just completely ridiculous.
Where homeless people are.
Yeah, it's it's some kind of a weird war tactic where you accuse the other people of doing like what you're actually doing.
It's probably one of that art of war.
That's what they're doing. So, and a bunch of other stuff. But what was interesting about the document is they have all these anonymous stories. Oh, a woman went into this center. They don't name the center, and they don't name the person, but it's not.
We could get away with that.
Yeah, anyone could do it. So now you would think that anyone would just write this off, but unfortunately, NARAL endorses people. They endorse people for office, and so they endorse some state senators.
Matters.
Yep, they endorse some state reps. And they got a lot of, connections and friends at our Capitol. So the Democratic, I don't even know what they are, committee, the Democrats in Connecticut, they decided to make shedding light on pregnancy centers part of their agenda. Doesn't that sound nice? Shedding light on pregnancy centers. That means harassing, attacking, discrediting. So they started this campaign, and one of the things they're doing is trying to pass this legislation. It comes under different numbers. Last year was HB 7070, but the title is An Act Concerning Deceptive Practices at Limited Services Pregnancy Centers. Now get this. Connecticut pregnancy centers have existed for over 30 years, and in about 2.5 to 3 years of testimonies and fighting this bill under different numbers, not one single woman from a pregnancy center, not an actual client, has come forward with a complaint. There's not been a written testimony.
There's 2 years, they can't find one woman.
Not one woman to testify. There's been multiple women who have testified who are from the pregnancy center movement who say, oh, I went to a pregnancy center. I loved it. It was so great. Now, they have women who come forward, but they're Yale pro-choice students. They are, Wesleyan, which has a liberal, also a pro-life group there, but liberal Wesleyan students.
You helped start that group, didn't you?
Yes, with Joy.
Yeah. Joy went to the White House last year.
Yes, I know. Actually, we went within a month of each other, which was really amazing. And then 2 other African American pro-life people that I know went as well. So it was like a banner month for us, all from my city, which was amazing. But they have spies, anonymous people testify, but there's not been
What's
one
their
woman.
complaint? What's their
So their complaint is that, you guys are deceptive in your advertising. You don't really let women know that you don't offer abortion. So therefore, when women get there, you've delayed them from their time-sensitive abortion care. But this is their definition of false. For 2 years in a row, they've actually said in front of the Public Health Committee that they consider the words "pregnant, need help?" on a billboard false advertising. Pregnant, need help? They have said that
so the only type of help you can offer pregnant women is to kill her baby.
Yes, because according to their logic, if a woman sees "pregnant, need help?" on a billboard, she assumes the help you're offering her is an abortion. Then when she gets to the center, she's going to realize that you don't offer abortion. So therefore, you've already delayed her in her time-sensitive care. So if a pregnancy center can't say "pregnant, need help?" what can they say? The answer is nothing, and that's their agenda. They don't want them to be able to say anything. The only thing that would count as false advertising is if a pregnancy center had a website that said, "We do abortions, come on in," and none of them do. But unfortunately, they don't care. It's a game. And this was shown when we had a public health meeting last year, and I exposed the fact that one of the vice chairs of the Public Health Committee, who was deciding if the bill goes forward, his wife was on the board of NARAL. His wife is on the board, and he got one of their highest awards. And I happened to mention that, and they all kind of rebuked me in the meeting, and they said, "Oh, that's out of line. Don't mention that. His wife has something to do with it." And I'm like, "But he helps to decide what goes forward." And of course, it passed right through. And I had heard
So if pregnant need help is deceptive, though, wouldn't Planned Parenthood be a deceptive name?
So the pregnancy centers
tried to parenthood. They're literally saying don't be a parent anymore.
Yes, and I've actually, when I worked at the pregnancy center, I actually talked to a couple women who called us who said, "Hey, what can you do? Can you do an ultrasound for me?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure. Why?" "Oh, okay, because I went over to Planned Parenthood and they said that, $600 for an ultrasound." And I thought, so I have talked to women who actually thought, because of the name Planned Parenthood, that they could call them after they told them that they were pregnant and that they could help them with parenting. And so
they can't.
You could say that name is deceptive. So the pregnancy centers tried to adjust the bill and say, okay, if you're going to come against us.
In a state with a bunch of Republicans, you should introduce a bill against the deceptive name of abortion facilities.
Well, we tried, and they rejected it. So
Connecticut.
They rejected it. We tried to add on Planned Parenthood and say, okay, if you're going to come after us, then come after Planned Parenthood too. Why don't you look at all facilities that are serving pregnant women? And they said no. They just rejected it. So, we're dealing with politics. We're dealing with people's agendas. So it died last year, but they ran out of time. So it passed through the Public Health Committee. It passed through the House of Representatives, and it went to the Senate. They had until midnight to call the bill. They didn't have time to call it.
What would the bill done if it passed? Would it force every
what it
pregnancy
would
center to
do
change
is
their
it would
name?
allow the Attorney General, who is very pro-abortion, who actually testified for this bill, which is crazy, because if you think about it,
the Attorney General testified?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. You think about so many bills, right? And so why would, the Attorney General who's working for the governor,
because the Attorney General is running for governor and wants money from
Why would he come and testify this little bill?
Yeah.
Well, because they're all connected. And he testified talking about, we're not trying to shut down pregnancy centers. We're just looking for the bad actors. That's what they say. The bad actors. It's like, well, what bad actors? There's not been one woman that's come forward and saying she's been hurt by a pregnancy center. But again, they always do under the guise of, we have to help women of color. It's like, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? Because these centers are the ones that are helping women of color, giving them diapers and baby clothes and showers and cribs without taxpayer dollars, while 75% of the abortions in Connecticut are paid by our taxpayer dollars. in Planned Parenthood, even when Trump took away some of the funding, or Planned Parenthood walked away from some of their funding this year, Connecticut was like, how can we give them more money? Maybe we can add $2 million more dollars.
How can we give them more money?
So it's insane. So, but anyway, the bill, if it passed, he would be able to determine everything that the centers say, from Facebook to Google, what is false advertising, and then fine them up to $100 a day if it's false, and force them to pay for corrected advertising. And here's the kicker. Even if they were to sue and to win, they can't recoup their costs.
Wait, what?
Yeah, that's part of the bill. Even if they were to sue and win, they couldn't get any money back from like just all that they pay, for lawyers and everything else, and not to mention all the time away from work and the pregnancy center leaders having to leave their offices and go into the city and fight for hours. Because these hearings, if you guys have ever been to a public hearing, they'll call the pregnancy center bill at midnight or 11 o'clock.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So you're there all day long, and they're having to sometimes leave their office. So it's insane. It's insane. But it is a way to shut down the centers.
That's unbelievable.
And to discredit them, which is an important point. Because, for instance, the one that I worked for, ABC.
It's also a compliment, though, too, because they're
threatened.
They're so terrified of these pregnancy centers who don't make any profit.
Yeah.
I mean, why does the abortion industry care? If they're all about pro-choice and that you should be able to choose, then why would you be angry at a pregnancy center that helps a woman who's made the choice not to have an abortion, and give her support and services and parenting classes?
Yeah.
Like, why would you care?
Because they're really not pro-choice.
That's right.
They are, pro-choice is pro-abortion, so I guess you could say that they are pro-choice, because pro-choice is pro-abortion. I mean, that's what it is.
You want to make someone mad on a college campus, you say that.
Yeah, people don't like to hear that, but what's the choice? Like, if you walked up to someone and you were like, are you pro-choice? They know you're not asking about food, or like what they think about, immigration, or what they think about sex trafficking. They know you're asking what they think about abortion. So they really are saying, I am pro the choice of abortion. It's just a shorter way of saying
Josh
it.
Brom says not to say that. Not to call pro-abortion because it stops conversation.
And I think that is actually true. So
our compromise was pro-abortion choice. So you're pro the abortion choice.
Yes. So I actually don't call your average person pro-abortion because I think your average person is often conflicted and
they're much in the middle.
But when it comes to the activists, when it comes to NARAL, when it comes to these people who live and breathe, punishing pregnancy centers, I reserve that word for them, because I've seen over and over again, like when they protested the pregnancy center, we had a client that day who had been raped, who was choosing life, who on her own came to us saying, I want to choose life. I want to have my baby after this rape, even though my family members don't want me to. I want to. Can you help me with this? We had to cancel her appointment because NARAL came to protest outside. And now we got wind of it because we had heard from a pro-life college student that they're coming. So we were able to meet them at the door. And actually some of our clients came out and had signs saying, we love ABC Women's Center. You can go on the Family Institute of Connecticut. I wrote about it. Or even,
what did you do? So I want to talk about that.
Sure.
I'm not being rude. I
know.
I emailed a woman from Connecticut just now saying, where are you at in this hotel? I have somebody you need to meet.
You're so funny.
I was like,
she's multitasking.
I am.
You go, girl.
This is my brain.
You have to be like that in order to do what you do.
I
you're
take
busy.
notes on my phone too, which previous podcasts I haven't alluded to that fact. I'm not being rude. I'm taking notes. But
yes, she's
I want you to tell me.
Sure.
Oh, and also Gracie's nebulizer just broke, so my husband just texted me. Order a new nebulizer.
Oh, geez. Okay.
We do 4 treatments a day, so we go through these things.
Oh, wow.
So this is my life. Tell me about the protests, because I think this has been a question. I've had I speak for a lot of pregnancy center banquets, as you do. I'm trying to do less because I travel too much and have 4 kids.
Yep.
But it's been kind of a question, because in the pregnancy center movement, and I started out in the pro-life movement in the pregnancy center movement, and there's always this divide. Like, if you're going to be an activist, a lot of pregnancy centers, they don't even want you to be a volunteer if you're an activist, because they don't want
they don't want you sidewalk counseling.
Yeah, which there's actually a really great podcast episode.
Okay.
She hasn't listened, of Tanya. I think we released in December. She actually runs a pregnancy center. It's Hand of Hope Pregnancy Center down in Raleigh.
Okay.
They started their own sidewalk counseling
that's great.
ministry.
Wow.
The numbers of, because they're doing the sidewalk advocacy and then getting
wow.
it is like,
that makes sense.
I'm like,
yeah.
oh,
No, I like that. I mean,
so,
I support sidewalk counseling. I think that
yeah.
that's
So
wonderful.
anyway, so there's always been this divide in the
Yes.
pregnancy center movement of like, how can pregnancy center volunteers and board members be involved in the advocacy, because I'm like the crazy activist side. So, but what do you do when you're a pregnancy center and you're not like a bunch of activists like me or Tanya who's running Hand of Hope, which check them out. I actually donate to them. But my husband's always like, why did we get this letter from this pregnancy center and random? I'm like, oh, don't worry, you're very generous. You don't know, But what do you do when your pregnancy center is being protested? Like, what do you think from your experience at ABC? Yes. Like, what's the best way to counter it?
Well, for us, we had a short window because I think I woke up that morning and I got a message from one of the students saying they happened to be in a Facebook group and they saw someone in the group say, hey, everybody, because they were at a liberal campus, let's go over to ABC at 4 o'clock and we're going to protest them. And so they sent it to me. And I was like, okay, what do we do? Now, at the same time, I had always in the back of my mind known that day would come because I just know that the way that these things work.
I think this is something that's going to come.
So it's good for people to be aware because we are seeing centers being vandalized and different things happening to them.
It's on the rise.
So we are seeing that. So it is good to be aware that this could happen to your center.
Wins re-election.
People are going to.
It's going to get a whole lot worse.
There's going to be a lot of frustration and anger. Yeah. So I felt like, why don't we have something peaceful? If the clients want to, we're not making them, but if they want to, they could stand outside with us, and we'll get our nurses and we'll get our doctor and different people, and they'll just say, have signs. I'm not a fake nurse. Here I am, because we knew they were going to try to make a scene and put it on Facebook and pretend that they had some big rally. So my executive director at the time, Molly, I ran it by her. She liked it, but then we went through the steps. We contacted people that were above us, NIFLA and CareNet and different people, and they said, okay, make sure you have waivers, make sure that the people that are doing it sign and say, okay, that we're okay with doing it. And it's not something that we would do every time, and it hasn't happened since. But for that particular time, that was the right strategy for that day. And when they came, we were ready for them. And, it was funny because first of all, they're all white, which I thought was funny because our clients were out there and our clients were black and, we had Latino women and everything and they're holding signs, and then the all white group, they're chanting things like, stay woke. And I'm like, are you kidding me? You won't even talk to these black women and, Latino women that are right next to you. You're chanting over in the corner. Give me a break.
that term in general.
So I was supposed to stay quiet. So I was supposed to just stay quiet and hand them water and whatever else. But I just went over there and I was just, I was being, kind, but I was also being firm and saying, okay, here you are. You're saying that we're hurting these women. You're saying that we're taking advantage of them. Here's your opportunity. Go talk to them. Why are you standing in the corner shouting, this is what they were shouting, no lies between the thighs. What in the world is that? And, Roe v. Wade, all these chants, it's like these women have made their choices
They found
already.
2 words that rhyme together and they
made
just
no
decided.
sense. So anyway, but what would, but for other centers, I would definitely pray. That's one of the most important things you can do. Pray about strategy, pray about wisdom, because it's different depending, the country is very different. So if you're in the South compared to if you're in the North, so sometimes you have to have different strategies. Look and see, what kind of support do you have? Do you have support of your legislators? If you do, maybe you could do something like, your legislators or your elected officials, maybe they could write a statement or come together, having your local pastors, this is something that we did too. We had local pastors come together and sign a document saying, we support the pregnancy center. You can send that out to legislators and let them know that you're not alone, that that people are supporting you. And if you can't do it, get someone else to do it. So if you as the pregnancy center, you can't do it, then have a team. Have a team on standby so that okay, when something goes down, we're gonna have these college students, we're gonna have some retired people. Can you show up when stuff goes down?
That's actually really smart because we do I was reading something we were putting out at Students for Life, and it's like have a protest in a bag ready.
Yeah, yeah.
So like in the trunk of your car, there should be always, if you're a pro-life activist, like a bag that has markers, signs, maybe a bullhorn, like
maybe a bullhorn,
like basically, so
definitely a bullhorn.
So like you're always ready to go, essentially.
Yep.
But that's kind of what you need to do as a pregnancy center.
You do. You
need
have
to have like
be
this
aware
kind of clique of people that are like.
Yep, that will pray for you.
I
so
like
if you
that
can
idea.
send out an automatic text to people saying, "Hey, pray for us. Someone's coming at 4 o'clock to protest us," or even just could you come stand here? Could you come stand here and pray outside? Because one of the things that really annoyed me about when NARAL Pro-Choice Connecticut came was that it was a very hot day. It was summer, so it was very hot. So we were out there for like an hour, and then we told our clients and everyone, just go home because it's hot, and we're tired of listening to them chant. So we shut down the center. We went home. Well, at that moment, they were so happy because they were standing to the side. But then when we left, they went to the front of the building. They took a group picture, and when they shared it on their social media, they only shared the picture, and they shared it so it looked like no one else was there but them. So because they weren't going to show, hey, we as an all-white group, we came up and there were black women and Hispanic women out there, and we were chanting against them.
You gave them their photo op. They were literally just waiting for you to leave.
They were just waiting. So now that I think about it, I'm like, oh, I wish that we had stayed longer than them. So,
I would have told you to never leave.
Yeah. So, that was our first time doing it, but now I know. So you might even want to have just people that can come and stand, that will just come and stand, and so they know, like, hey, this ground belongs to us. Like, this is not your space. We're going to stand here. We're going to pray. We're going to speak truth. Maybe we're going to hold a sign or whatever it may be. But, don't be intimidated. I believe that the general public, most people are on the side of pregnancy centers because they know that these centers are providing at no cost, without taxpayer dollars, so many resources to women and families. And not just during their pregnancy, but after their pregnancy, for 2 years after, with diapers and clothes and parenting classes. And the abortion industry is not doing that. And I do believe that they're threatened, and that's why they have to create these, these lies. And it's not, unfortunately in places like Connecticut, it's not going to slow down anytime soon, so we just have to be wise and we have to be aware.
Has anyone training, so this is where my head goes, has anyone done like a national training for pregnancy centers?
Probably,
how they combat
but I don't know.
From like an activist standpoint?
I don't know. I mean,
I'm just thinking like we should take this on the road.
Yeah, no, I think it's a
like
good conversation, and I think that there needs to be more education and training. I know that like CareNet and NIFLA and these different organizations, like they are ready and willing to counsel people.
Yeah, they'll
so
help you if you
senators call, and I know that they have these large gatherings, once a year, and there's so many different topics. So I haven't been in a few years, so there may be, because of the increase in this, exposed fake clinics and the legislation that they're seeing, what happened in California, what's happening in Connecticut, they may be having more sessions about this, but I don't know.
I'm writing this down in my
it's good. It's a good
Christina notes, because
it's a good topic.
It's a good topic of how do we get maybe even part of this conversation out to pregnancy center directors across the country and say, hey, just listen to this podcast and start thinking. I mean, because maybe just having it on your mind sometimes generates your own ideas of like, well, that won't work in my community, but I could do this and that would work. Yeah, I'm writing that down.
Yeah, and one good thing to remember too is that unfortunately, you see with politics that some people, when they when they play the victim role, oftentimes that allows them to manipulate people. So as pregnancy centers, obviously you're not playing the victim role, because if you're being attacked and harassed, like you really are being, victimized. But when people see that, it causes them to want to support you more.
It
so
does.
Because the thing about Planned Parenthood in the abortion industry, is they have convinced people that they're the good guys. They have convinced people that they're the saviors. Abortion is only 3% of what we do. Lie. And, we just want to help poor black women. We want to help them by terminating their children. So, people believe these lies. And that's why they defend Planned Parenthood. Or NARAL. So when people can see, wait a minute, these are NARAL people who protested your center and you couldn't see a woman who was raped.
Who are against the choice of life.
Yeah. And you're just giving out diapers, and they are, and that's why they have to lie. Because it's not enough for them to just say, oh, we don't like pro-life centers. Because people would be like, what's wrong with that? Like, they have a choice. That's why, in order for them to really fight, they have to make up stuff. Oh, well, it's not just that we don't like them because they're pro-life. We don't like them because they have no licensed doctors and no licensed nurses, and they're lying to people about how far they are with their ultrasound, and they're delaying their care, and they're pushing the Bible. We had a situation where when we went to the Public Health Committee and we went to, have to fight this at the Capitol, NARAL actually submitted an anonymous testimony saying in 2015 that a girl who was 19 years old came to the ABC Women's Center and she was pregnant and she was shamed because she was having sex outside of marriage, and they pushed the Bible down her throat and all this stuff. So I told my director, because I was the client service manager at that time, I said, pull the records, because pregnancy centers keep records. Pull the records and see if there were, first of all, any clients that came in 2015 who were even 19 years old and came for a pregnancy test. Well, wouldn't you know, there weren't any at all who fit that description. So we shared that before the members of the committee, and we said, this is completely made up. Like, we have facts, we have records. And one of the guys got so offended because he's endorsed by NARAL that he literally, on the platform in front of a room full of people, hundreds of people, NARAL people, pro-life people, he said, oh, sure, okay, well then how come I'm looking on your website right now and it says, give us a call, shoot us an email, stop by our center if you want an abortion. And the room just goes, whoa, whoa. What he did, and because I was so livid, is he went on the website of ABC Women's Center and he saw on the bottom it said something like, give us a call, shoot us an email if you want information on abortion, because every pregnancy center offers information on the procedures, give us a call and talk to us. And he just switched the words around to make it seem like the website said, just stop by if you want an abortion, here we are. And it was just ridiculous because he was so offended that we would call the lie and say there's no facts to prove this. So it just really goes to show you, and I have a lot more horrible stories about legislators just completely lying, visiting the center, and then when I have a legislator, visiting the center, and then when someone asked him later, well, how come you're supporting that bill? Well, because I went to the center and the leaders told me that they are not going to be impacted in any way by the bill. It's not going to negatively impact them in any way. And we call him on it, and then he does it again at an open house, coffee house meeting. So we have to be so aware. I was kind of naive when I first started. I didn't realize that legislators would lie to my face. I didn't realize that they would, make up things. And now I know. And so now I'm smarter. Yeah.
And they didn't get rid of you. That's what I love about this is that you were working at the center, a pregnancy center, and now you're doing full time with the Family Policy Council.
Yeah,
so they thought you were paying before when you were just a client services manager at ABC.
Now I'm worse.
Now you're on steroids.
Now I'm worse because I'm at the Capitol and I'm testifying and they're rolling their eyes and everything, and they just they don't like that. But it's okay. Ultimately, we all have to answer for the choices that we make, and I know that they're going to have to answer. And what bugs me the most, what hurts me the most, is that they're playing politics with women and children and their lives, because there are women who already, like a city like Hartford, so many low-income women, so many low-income women of color, and the community groups. So I was going to mention this before. So a center like ABC, they work with WIC, they work with New Horizons Domestic Violence Shelter, they work with the Community Health Center. Those places, DCF, are referring clients. So what happens when, God forbid, if this legislation were to pass? The newspapers and the social media blast the title of Connecticut Pregnancy Center is found guilty of deceptive advertising, manipulating women. Most people don't read past the articles. They're not going to go and call the center and get the other side. So then what happens? So the community centers say, we can't refer clients to you anymore. So then women don't get not only diapers and clothes, but maybe a referral. Maybe a referral to, because when I worked there, I was referring women to domestic violence shelters. I was referring women to houses where they were dealing with addiction and they could go to a rehab house. I was referring women to get, prenatal care at community health centers. So people can't just think of a pregnancy center. Oh, well, that's just the pregnancy center. No, the pregnancy center is connected to a hospital, to these shelters, to these soup kitchens.
It's impacting the entire community.
The entire community.
And so I think that's why it's so important that we fight back, and that we don't just I think sometimes in the pro-life movement we we understand that when we speak out, we're going to be persecuted for our beliefs and what we do. And so I think sometimes we kind of take on this like little complex, like persecution complex. Well, you know, we're just going to be attacked. That's how it is. Like, no, fight back. You have to fight back, because what the services that the pregnancy center is providing is integral to the community, and the community needs the pregnancy center. And this is a fight worth engaging. And by the way, which I know we have to wrap up, but it's a fight you can win. So like in Baltimore, in California, the whole Supreme Court case where California tried to, you know, force all the pregnancy centers to do these like ridiculous, like
refer for abortion,
all 18 languages and to refer for abortion. Like it was crazy. They had the font size, like it was nuts. We won that case in the Supreme Court, even with liberal justices, you know, still in majority. So you have the First Amendment. So fight back. Like this is a fight worthy of engaging in, and you can't be afraid of that.
And so, you know, if you're in a church, or if you're non-religious, it doesn't really matter. If you're a community member, you know, the pregnancy centers, I've seen this. You know, they often get, you know, financial support from churches and friends and donors, and they'll get diapers and clothes, but it's harder for people to show up when it comes to these political battles. But guess who is in the Capitol day and night? People with pink shirts. Planned Parenthood. They stay in the Capitol, and I have seen them, you know, shaking hands with legislators. I remember when I was in the Capitol one day, and I literally heard, because Connecticut doesn't have parental notification bill, so we don't, you know, our teenagers don't have to tell their parents if they're going to get an abortion. And I heard pro-life legislators were trying to pass it. And I heard a Planned Parenthood person, you know, say to the legislator, "Yeah, we really need you to kill this, you know, parental notification bill." They're there all the time.
Yeah, they're there.
And if we're not there, guess who they're talking to? And even if the legislators are kind of neutral and they don't really support Planned Parenthood, they will tend to support them if they're not hearing anything from the other side, just because of the pressure.
That's exactly
If you have 5 Planned Parenthood people who are not only coming to say, you know, support this bill, but they're going to say, if you don't support this bill, I am going to tell the community that you're anti-women and that you're anti-choice. And a lot of legislators are like,
drama. There's like, oh, okay, whatever.
Okay, I'm afraid I want to stay in office.
Yeah.
So, but then if they have
politicians ultimately want.
Yeah. If you've got 10 pro-lifers over here saying, really? Then it's like, okay, well now I have to make a decision because I have pressure on this side, pressure on that side.
Right.
So especially the ones in the middle. I know that there is, you know, people that are pro-abortion and you can't change their mind, at least, you know, without a miracle. But there's a lot of people that are in the middle that need, you know, that need your voice.
Which is why you need to be involved in politics. I hate when people are like, oh, I had a Students for Life group on Instagram this morning. I was like, we don't do politics, but this is really cool. I'm like, yeah, you should do politics.
Well, Roe v. Wade was a Supreme Court decision.
Exactly,
so.
And it's not. Yes, I agree. It's not everyone's cup of tea, and you may not be your expertise in it. But this is one place we engage, just like in the community with the pregnancy centers, politics, and you have to be there because they will be there. So, Christina, thanks for coming on the podcast.
Oh, my pleasure.
So great to kind of get to catch up with you a little bit.
Thank you for having me.
How do people follow kind of what you're doing there?
Oh, yes. So, Instagram, I am Black Pro-Life Woman. I'm on there. Twitter, I'm not on there as much, but I am on there sometimes. And also Black Pro-Life Woman, Christina Bennett on Facebook. I have a website, www.christinabennett.com. So it's really easy to find me on social media. Great. On the internet, shoot me an email. MrsChristinaBennett@gmail.com is my email.
Oh, awesome. And have Christina come to your campus, your pregnancy center.
Yes, I would love to. Let me know.
Obviously, she's not shy. So thanks for coming on. Hey, guys, make sure you spread the message about this podcast, especially to someone you know who might be running a pregnancy center, might be on the board of a pregnancy center, because this is a serious conversation we need to have this year, especially gearing up for hopefully what will be a pro-life victory in November, because it's really going to hit the fan then. It's explicitly pro-life, but I won't say it, but you know it's going to hit the fan. So thanks for tuning in, and make sure you spread the word so other people subscribe. Bye.